This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, are biofuels in your future? And what's happening out in the field right now? Oh, and marauding crop stealing monkeys. All that and much more on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Hi, and welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. Last week was like a game of telephone. The weather gets nice and somebody says, boy, I wish I was planting. A few coffee shops later, half the county is not only planted, but harvested, sold for a huge profit, and are off heading back to Florida. Field work, yes, most or many of you have been doing things in the field that you might not have been able to get to for a couple weeks in previous years. But upon further review, we have yet to find someone who's actually put seeds in the ground. So if you're worried you're late, relax. You're in good company. So sanity has returned, for now. Later on, we'll talk to crop watcher Todd Easton about what he has seen. But first, since we started the Four Rivers Ag Report, I've been reading about this biofuel crop or that biofuel crop, about ethanol production and corn prices, about how much price support ethanol offers corn, and blah, 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 blah. Frankly, I'm having a tough time keeping everything about renewable energy production straight and what it means to farmers. So what do whenever I don't understand something? I call in someone who does know a thing or two about what this stuff. That's why Tom Kanan of Eastern Illinois University botany professor and researcher in renewable energy crops is here, and he's going to help us try to understand all this. Tom, thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
Okay, so we got corn and ethanol. I think most of us understand that ethanol's been our friend lately. Mm-hmm. So is ethanol the renewable energy crop of the future?
It could be. I think there's always going to be a market for ethanol, especially from corn. But it can't solve all the problems. And so it can definitely fill in a part of the transportation fuel. It's got a role in pharmaceuticals, but it can't provide energy for absolutely everything.
So why is it part of, why for transportation fuels and for medical purposes? I mean, why those products?
The medical field definitely needs ethanol.
Okay.
And producing ethanol from corn and corn starch is a good way of making ethanol. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
For some transportation, things like other technologies like gasification, it's not going to work very well right now anyway with this technology. Ethanol fits into the existing infrastructure for gasoline really well. It blends with gasoline, so there's definitely a transportation fuel market there for that.
So that's why, ethanol is, there are plants there for ethanol, there's a structure in place for ethanol. What other options is there? Well, I mean, is that it? I mean, there has to be something else out there that we could possibly get renewable energy from.
Yeah, you can, one good source is biodiesel.
Biodiesel, what's the difference
between that? Biodiesel is diesel, essentially like diesel, gasoline, petroleum diesel, that is produced from plant oils or any other kind of waste oil.
Wait, okay, you mean like
cooking oil, things from a
restaurant,
things like that. So you can take that waste oil or different types of oil from oilseed crops like canola or whatever, and through a little bit of chemistry, a little bit of jigging around, you can actually make basically diesel fuel from that. And you can use it in your car. You can possibly use it for really any transportation as a liquid fuel. So that's another source. Okay,
so just here again, we get a lot of canola, but here again, corn isn't the issue here. Are there other things that you could get by that cooking oil type substance from?
Other types of crops?
Other types of plants.
Yeah, you can definitely get it from algae.
Oh, algae. Okay, so the algae research is biodiesel.
It can be. There's lots of algae research out there, but biodiesel is a big component of that. And we're looking at that in our department here at Eastern. Basically, you can entice the algae to make biodiesel, make oil, so that we can convert it into biodiesel. And one thing we're trying here is using algae to purify wastewater, at which point they'll also be making different types of oil, which we can use for biodiesel.
Oh, that would be great.
So we're sort of getting two components from algae at once. One is cleaning, the other one is getting fuel from.
So they would be creating fuel from waste products.
That's right.
Wow, that'd be pretty neat.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned gasification. And I know what gasification is, but for anybody out here who doesn't know what gasification is, can you explain that process and how is that a renewable energy system?
Right, so gasification is essentially burning, in terms of biomass gasification, burning biomass or plant matter in a controlled environment so that it kind of steams off its own gases, like carbon monoxide and methane and hydrogen.
Okay.
And then you can take those gases and use them to fuel traditional boilers and different types of processes that usually use natural gas.
Okay, so this is kind of sort of a renewable way of creating steam?
You can get steam if you use the gas to fire a boiler.
Okay.
Then you can generate steam that way.
Okay.
And that's what the gasification facility here at Eastern.
Okay, so you're burning plant material in a control setting, and you're creating heat that is creating steam, which is creating energy,
Right.
and it's keeping these lights on right now.
A little bit of the lights. The Renewable Energy Center at Eastern is generating some power through a steam generator, but mostly it's providing all the steam and steam heat and all the steam needs, which are quite a few. There's quite a few things that demand that on campus.
So that's gasification. What sort of plant material do you use in gasification? I imagine you can't burn algae.
Well, we're looking at that. trying to get three things out of algae. There are other types of things. Usually you want to have a good crop that grows very fast because you're going to want to cut it down repeatedly. You're going to want to have decent properties, so it usually needs to be sort of woody. So wood's an obvious one, trees.
Okay, so you want a really dense cell structure.
A dense cell structure. You want it to grow fast because you're going to want to harvest this repeatedly. You're going to want it to be low input because every time you add fertilizer or any sort of processing or handling, you increase the overall cost of the process. So you want it to be very low maintenance and very good density and have good properties. And so really what that comes down to in the field is different types of trees, like poplar. Poplar's a big one. Miscanthus and switchgrass.
So, okay, those are the three I keep reading about. Why poplar?
Poplar's good because poplar grows extremely fast.
Okay.
It's basically a weed. It's the weed of the trees.
I'm sure it's going to resent that, but yeah.
And so it grows really fast. It's got good, dense wood. It can grow in all kinds of places in North America.
Okay.
So we could, if you set up a gasification plant pretty much anywhere in North America and the United States, you can pretty much count on being able to grow some poplar species next to that facility.
Okay.
So it's got a lot of good properties that way. It grows really fast. It's really dense. It's sort of the plant to be feeding into gasifiers as they're made right now.
Okay.
And so the Renewable Energy Center at Eastern's using wood chips right now.
Okay.
And it's meant to use that for the first year to get it up and running.
Okay, switchgrass is this quick-growing, tall weed grass, right?
Yes.
And what is whatever.
Miscanthus.
Thank you.
So miscanthus is native to Japan, native to Asia. It has a lot of great properties. It also grows really, really fast. It'll outgrow switchgrass.
Okay.
I might have somebody say otherwise, but to my understanding, it grows faster and bigger and stronger than switchgrass. So that makes it very good. It's very woody. It's very much like a bamboo-ish type cane.
Okay.
And it has all the other traits like growing fast, not needing a lot of help. There's also a sterile line that most people are using now. So that means that the crop won't spread through seeds traditionally and cause problems.
So we won't have a kudzu problem.
Yeah, we won't have things spreading around. It propagates, or you can distribute it with a root system. You cut up its root system and spread it that way.
Okay.
So we can contain miscanthus right now. It grows really well, gasifies well. It really is a good crop.
So what sort of fields? Would you take corn out of production to grow this stuff, or would you use, something that's not quite as pampered as would you use fields that aren't quite perfect?
Yeah, and that's really where this bioenergy crop right now is going. You have to think about areas outside of your traditional corn, prime corn land, because obviously that generates a lot of money and it's really important. and we have to feed people
Yes.
and feed animals and whatever. So if there's a plot of land, if you're a farmer, and you've got a plot of land that isn't very good with corn, maybe you're planting corn, maybe you're planting CRP, some sort of controlled grass, you should think about maybe using that land to grow trees like poplar, miscanthus, switchgrass. These are things you have to keep in mind going forward. There might actually be a market for that.
Oh, okay. So
Not too far off. So you want to see if you have any spots of land that could really be used that maybe are marginal, not so good for corn, but could be good.
erodible land or
Just about any land. It could be on a hill, it could be salty, dry, any kind of trouble land that really gives you a hard time, you can put in one of these crops.
Excellent, excellent. So when farmers gaze in their crystal balls and try to figure out what they're going to be farming, 5, 10 years down the lane, what do you see? What's the potential for farmers to actually earn a living growing this stuff?
Yeah, it's tricky. I think the technology is really going to dictate what the farmers are going to be planting or growing. So with the gasifier we have at Eastern, we have already the technology there that we can gasify pretty much any kind of decent biomass in there. So in this local area, we already have the technology there. So if you're a farmer and you're thinking about maybe getting in the game to contribute to providing biomass to that center for Eastern, then the market's already there. So you should be thinking about that strongly. If you're in other parts and there really isn't a local center like that, you definitely want to keep an eye on the technology and see whatever technology is in the works, see what biomass is ideal for that, and try to at least start thinking about maybe you can plant some of this, compare the cost of what you might get for that crop versus what you're getting for corn now, or what you might get for corn 10 years from now, that type of thing.
So it's all in flux. I mean, how did the researchers figure out where to look?
Yeah, it's tricky. So we're also crystal balling, like the farmers are. So we're trying different types of biomass, growing different crops, and experimenting with different technologies. So right now we have a lab scale gasifier on campus. It's a miniature version of the big scale that we have. So we can try just about any biomass we want in there and see what we get out of it. And we're doing that with making ethanol too, different types of biodiesel. We're trying all these things. So really you have to, maybe not each individual researcher, but we have to have many researchers looking at many different components.
So, I mean, is there an equation that figures out what's profitable, where you should look, or is there just sort of, oh, this is interesting, today I want to study, how gasification of daylilies?
Right. So, I mean, you might not go to the daylily right away because you sort of want to jump into the current literature and get an idea. But you definitely have to consider the fact that a lot of these processes, they require many different aspects along the way. You have to grow it, pay the farmer something, you have to harvest it, transport it, get it to the facility, the technology has to be a certain way. So all of these different components become parts of an overall equation that give you the cost of the process. And so every time there is any sort of development at any of those steps, you can lower the overall cost of the system. So as researchers, there's many different people, many different steps along the way, all working to lower the cost so that the eventual end equation, the end of it, the price, is competitive with what we have going now. So with the ethanol especially, if you're talking about ethanol transportation, there are many steps along the way that can get you to a lower value that could be competitive with gasoline. And so there's people constantly working at each of these steps, and it's constantly lowering. So
I'm only slightly less confused than I was 10 minutes ago. Thank you, Tom.
I'm Monica Becker. The USDA is warning individuals and businesses to be on the lookout for a fraudulent letter being sent by fax. The letters claim to come from a USDA procurement officer and asks personal and financial information. Letters have been received in Alabama, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. The letters are signed by Frank Rutenberg. The USDA is currently investigating. The House released their proposed 2013 budget this week, and the reaction has been spirited. Much of the attention is being given to cuts in Medicare and no cuts to defense programs. But agriculture is also taking a pretty big hit. The House budget calls for cuts of over $33 billion in agriculture products over the next 10 years. Colin Peterson, the ranking member of the House Ag Committee, criticized the plan, saying that this budget all but guarantees that there will be no farm bill this year. U of I research reports that swine producers can feed distillers' dried grain with solubles to their pigs without concern for sulfur content. Distillers' dried grain is a byproduct of ethanol production and is a popular feed ingredient in swine diets. The problem was that much of this grain had a significant level of sulfur. U of I research showed no difference in the levels in pigs fed high or low-level sulfur grain. While sulfur has been shown to be toxic to cattle, apparently these little piggies can go to the market. Another research project is looking at using natural processes to remove a dangerous chemical. USDA scientists have studied the nitrates and phosphorus in groundwater in a 17-acre Iowan field that was being converted from corn and soybean production to a reconstructed prairie. As the prairie became established, nitrate concentrations in groundwater samples declined and stabilized. And finally, maybe prices of this commodity might come down. Scientists in Kashmir have cloned a rare cashmere goat. The cashmere goat produces the silky soft wool used to make, you guessed it, cashmere wool. The goats live in small herds, and experts say the numbers are dwindling and is threatening the $80 million a year that the wool helps generate for the poor province. On March 9th, Nori, a female kid, was born. She was conceived using a relatively new handmade technique, using basically a microscope and a steady hand. It is hoped that this cheaper, faster process will help regrow the herds. And I hope that means that the price of a sweater comes down a bit. I'm Monica Becker. Thanks for watching.
We've had such an interesting spring that I've decided to invite our friend Todd Easton back to talk to us. Todd actually has boots on the ground at Terrydale Farm, and he's also the crop watcher for Farm Week. And he's been here before, and for harvest, I thought I'd have you back at the start of planting season. I didn't think it was going to be March, though.
Yeah, really. Thanks, Fred. I'm glad to be back.
Okay, well, Todd, what's happening out there? I've seen lots of stuff, but what's really happening out there?
Well, it's crazy for mid-March, for sure. There has been several rumors of planting.
Right.
But not to get ahead of myself, there's been a lot more tillage work, a lot of fertilizer application, spraying, and a lot of preparation, this is very nice for a farmer when you can get in ahead of time a little bit and get some things done and be off to a good start.
So have most of the guys been out there tilling and applying ammonia and doing all the prep work? You know, the planting rumors are what's been odd.
Yeah, for me too. I love how farmers always talk about things, and I've heard of several people planting. I haven't actually seen a planted cornfield. Okay. I think maybe some guys are sticking their toes in the water.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we got some. A farmer exaggerating. It would never happen, would it?
No, of course not.
So if they're not planting, how much? Percentage-wise, how much field work has been done? How much tilling? How much ammonia? I mean, the guys who put ammonia on in the fall, they're probably thinking about doing it again, aren't they?
Well, yeah. As far as a percentage, I mean, we're still just getting into the 10 to 15% of things done, and a lot of the tillage trips are just pre-trips to level, and we've got a flush of weeds coming on, so people are trying to battle against that.
Yeah, it's been a nice crop of weeds coming up.
Yes. But as far as the ammonia, anybody who's applied in the fall is probably applied for right now. There'll be a lot of guys who wait till the spring. That's one of those hard to manage nutrients that everybody has to work for. But I think what you'll see this next year is a lot more, it's been a trend for a few years, of application in a side dress, defeating the plant as it's growing. And that really has helped us able to manage nutrients and make yields better.
Okay, so we didn't get a lot of snow this winter.
No, it was
very nice.
A winter that really wasn't.
Yeah, I was going to say it was made commuting quite nice, but we had some wetness, but we didn't have a lot of snow. How is that affecting you guys?
Well, I don't think it's really affecting us. We had moisture, the ground moisture is pretty good right now, especially with the rain last weekend. So I don't think the lack of snow, we got some freezes. I don't think our pests, you know, like if you don't get a lot of freezes, you'll have more insects, but I don't think that should be much of an issue. Yeah.
Okay, because I've been hearing, you know, fire ants in Alabama out already, and lots of aphids.
There's going to be some things that may come out, and some things won't. So the things that, you know, can't take any freeze, you know, they'll be in check. The things that can really need a good freeze, you know, we may see more of. It's going to be a year of management as always.
Well, I've done my part with the gnats on my windshield. So, so what do you hear people are doing? A lot of corn, mostly corn. They rotating like they should, or?
I think there's going to be a little bit more rotation of corn and beans this year after last year's corn on corn yield drag, which was very prevalent and frustrating to a lot of us.
Right.
So I think there'll be a little bit more, but it should be about like it's been the last few years.
I mean, with the price of corn so high, it seems that's awfully tempting, isn't it?
Yeah, because when you look at it on a piece of paper, it looks awful good to grow another crop of corn.
Yeah, but if we grow corn on paper,
you don't grow corn on paper.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this weather has been strange. Have you ever seen anything like this in your time, or have you heard of anything like this?
Not really. I don't think there's ever 2 years that are alike.
Well, that's true.
This is a combination of a very mild winter and a very early spring as far as being able to get into the field. As far as dryness, I remember early springs, and I mean, not every winter's, you know, is always bad. So I think I've never had these two together that I remember.
Right. So is there any concern about this early warm spring turning out to be a very dry, hot summer?
Yeah, not that I want to think about much.
Well, don't you guys worry about it?
Yes, we always worry, but I guess when it comes to weather, you just kind of got to leave it up to the powers that be and try to manage it as best you can as a farmer. So. Okay.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your crop watching sideline with Farm Week. I read it every week. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, it gives me a real sense of what's going on all around the state.
The first report never goes out till the first week of May. I think it's going to be a little late this year. I think so. I'm going to be talking about my corn that's knee high if this keeps up.
I was going to say, so you start driving around late April?
Yeah, I'm always out and about, you know, I've got things to do. And so I guess I'm just always, especially now that I've gotten the crop watcher, I'm always just observing. But
yeah. And so do you have folks coming up and telling you details? Are you not really?
I've had a couple helpful suggestions. One once in a while. A lot of it's just people, you know, telling me I think I'm doing a good job, and I appreciate that a lot. It really encourages me to do the job.
Well, I enjoy reading it, and so you know, and I imagine I don't have a stake in the farming business, so I think the others do. So we think you're going to get the crop in at the start.
We think.
Yeah.
The 15-day forecast looks like we should be able to get some opportunities. Boy, I'd sure be a head shaker if it turns off raining April 1st, let me tell you. That about happened last year. April, I think it was 8th that shut us out for a month. So,
right. That was a very wet spring.
Crossing my fingers that don't happen
Exactly. Again. So if you get it in close to the 6th, that's the crop insurance date, you know, when are we expecting maturity?
Well, that always depends on the year.
Yes,
everything depends
of course
in farming. But I'd say it would be definitely an earlier crop.
August or September?
Yeah, I'd say tail end of August, September. You'll probably see a guy in late August trying out his combine. Like you hear about the guys trying out planting now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Todd, thank you so much. Appreciate you doing this, and you plan on having you back later on, you know, as often as you can during the summer. Okay.
I look forward to it.
Okay. Before we go, we have some business to take care of, monkey business. Researchers and farmers in Uganda have discovered that solitary or packs of single red-tailed monkeys are much more likely to cause significant damage to coca crops there. They have found that social groups that contain both male and female monkeys don't venture too far away from the forest edge into the coca fields and therefore commit less damage. But single male monkeys or groups of troublemaking male monkeys wander deeper into the field and cause much more damage. Sounds to me like a typical Saturday night on campus. But not all of our simian friends are causing trouble. Some are welcoming others with open arms. The Erie Zoo's gorilla, Samantha, has been without a full-time friend since the death of Rudy, a male gorilla, in 2005. But officials say that the 47-year-old western lowland gorilla is too old to be paired with another gorilla. So they opted for something else. They pulled a rabbit out of the hat. They actually pulled a rabbit out of the hat. Last month, they introduced her to Panda, a Dutch rabbit. Samantha immediately took to Panda, feeding him and petting him. Panda, as turned out, is fearless in his new home. The only thing Samantha and Panda don't share is the baby doll that Samantha has had for over a decade. When the rabbit gets too close, Samantha moves the doll. Panda better take note. It's not worth splitting hairs over. Well, that's it for this week. Work hard, be safe, and enjoy the beautiful sunsets. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report.